Hey guys, okay, so today I'm going to be doing an introduction mainly for beginners, but also if you want to learn a little bit more about longboarding and what kind of longboards you should be getting. So it's basically an introduction to longboarding. Well, we'll be covering firstly the difference between a longboard and a skateboard, secondly a bit of history on longboarding, and thirdly how to choose your first longboard or a second longboard or whatever longboard you should choose. Okay, so the difference simply is skateboards were made to do pop tricks, street tricks and tricks at a skate park, so mainly trick boards. Longboards were mainly made for transportation, cruising, being able to go way faster than skateboards, aka downhill. I don't exactly know what to believe, but I'll tell you a couple that I've heard, and one, in my opinion, started everything off. So firstly, people say a guy called Tom Sims invented longboarding when he put his skateboard wheels and trucks on a water ski. Then it sort of caught off from there. Then some others say that a group of surfers invented longboards after they couldn't surf in the winter or when there was no waves, so they decided to put trucks and wheels onto a surfboard, and that created longboards. Then there's my opinion, where the legendary Z-Boys, Tony Alva, Stacey Peralta and Jay Adams from Zephyr Skate and Surf Shop brought the entire sport of skateboarding and longboarding to life. But I still think their boards really look like longboards and not really skateboards. That's my opinion. Watch Lords of Dogtown and you'll see. On to my advice on buying a longboard. So before I start, there's a few things that you need to take into account. Firstly, longboarding is not a cheap sport. If you want cheap, then you will probably not get very decent products. Take this as a warning. Secondly, before you go out, buy a helmet. Safety comes first. And if it doesn't, then a lovely free trip to the hospital might take its place. Helmets don't look gay, they look professional. That's what I say. And thirdly, some words that you're going to need for this section to know are flex, how bendy the board is. For example, when you step on the middle, does it flex down or does it stay rigid and straight? Concave, the amount of bend the board has width-wise. E.g., is the board flat or are the sides higher than the middle? Then finally, there's durometer, which only comes together with wheels and basically means the hardness of the wheel. Okay, onto it. Okay, so first of all, you want to figure out what you want to be doing mainly with your longboard. Unlike skateboards, there are many different shapes, sizes and flexes of longboards. So I'm going to give you a list of the main different types of longboards so you can get an idea of what you want to do with your longboard. Okay, so first of all, we have cruising. This means to go out on a nice, casual ride, smooth, not worrying about any tricks or anything. Finding a board for this can be difficult depending on what kind of area you live in. For flat, gentle cruisers, I'd recommend a flexi board with little concave and a nice long shape. Note, longboards are a lot more stable and have a lot more balance than shorter boards, but they're also less agile. So if you live in a city where you need quick reflexes and movement, then I'd recommend getting a shorter board. For a hilly neighbourhood, I'd recommend getting a board with little flex, a nice decent amount of concave for sliding, and a long wide board for stability. Okay, so second we have carving. Carving means to be able to move the board left and right by leaning in that general direction. For this, I'd recommend getting a pintail shaped longboard, or a board which is long, has flex, a bit of concave and fits nicely around the wheels. Next we have downhill / bombing / speedboarding. This means to be able to go very fast with no worries. For this, you would need a board which is long for stability, has literally no flex, and is wide, plus has concave to lock your feet in. Next we have sliding, to move the board sideways while going fast. This is used for slowing down while speedboarding or completely stopping. For this, you will need a board which has little flex, because you're going to need to go fast to pull off a slide, has a lot of concave to lock your feet in. A shorter board is better for this case because a shorter board is a lot more easy to control during the slide, and a board which is generally lower to the ground. Again, because you get a lot more control. Oh, and if you want to do sliding, I would recommend getting yourself a decent pair of slide gloves. Next we have slalom, to be able to move quickly with a lot of agility from left to right, try between cones, etc. With slalom, you just really need a short board, as short as you can manage. The shorter the board, the more agile it is. Next we have dancing / tricks on a longboard. to be able to do grab tricks, flip tricks, step tricks, and generally dance, but on a longboard. This can vary on what people like. Some people will like a longer board because they can do step tricks like cross steps, walk the plank, and a pirouette easier. Plus, I find that tricks like tiger claws are easier. However, shorter boards are easier for early grabs and flick tricks because they're lighter. An absolute must for dancing boards is to get a board with at least one kick, if not two. I find that you can't dance unless you've got kicks. It doesn't need to be a kick, but it can just be something like a dervish has got, where it's just got little corners at each end. Other than that, I would recommend getting a board with little concave and a board which has a nice little bit of flex. Next we have free riding, to be able to do a little bit of everything put all into one board. For this you would need a board which is middle flex, has middle concave, and which is sort of middle size really, plus has a kick or two. This is a good option for people who don't exactly know what they want to do, and for people who don't have that much money to spend on the different style longboards. For buying wheels, this is all you need to know. So firstly, the lower durometer, the smoother it will be and the more it grips to the ground. But the higher the durometer, the easier it will be to slide. So when you are buying wheels, 88 or below means soft and grippy, around 83A means in the middle, so slidey and grippy, and anywhere above 86A will be a lot easier to slide. In my opinion, these three durometers are the best ones to look at. So secondly, the bigger the wheel, the faster it will go, because there is a lot more surface area on the wheel. But it is heavier. My favourite sizes are 70mm and 75mm, or somewhere in between that. Okay, so now trucks. In my opinion, trucks aren't really that much different. You can get specific trucks for downhill and specific trucks for cruising, but mainly trucks can basically do everything. That's in my opinion. But if you want a specialised truck, then it's probably going to be a lot more expensive. The average truck size for longboards is 118mm, or for slightly smaller longboards, 150mm. Another thing you should know is the looser a truck will be, the more turny it will be, and the tighter a truck is, the more rigid it will be. For trucks, I would recommend looking at Paris trucks, Randall trucks, and Going trucks. Those are my favourites. And then finally, there is bearings. Bearings mainly depend on what you can afford, but I absolutely recommend getting Bones bearings. Any set, any price. That will do, yeah. One more thing, if you buy a longboard with trucks and wheels made by the same company, then it could be a bad idea. But it's cheap and will usually work okay for a while. If you can get an expensive but definitely decent longboard, then do. It will always be worth it. So, that is my introduction to longboarding. Anyone who wants any advice or has any questions about longboarding, then just send me a message. Yep, like, comment, subscribe, go longboard. Cheers.